Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. I am Chicago Bears beat reporter Michael Dwojak here with the Northwest Herald's Joe Aguilar as we are getting ready for week number 9 as the Bears play the Cincinnati Bengals. Head over to I think that's called the Queen City, right? Like the Queen City on Sunday afternoon to play the Bengals. And it should be a really interesting matchup here. We got a lot of different storylines here. Again, we're talking about who's the quarterback for the opposing team. Again, we're talking about Caleb Williams. Again, we're talking. It feels like Groundhog Day, Joe. I feel like we're talking about the same things we did probably a week ago
Right.
in a game that we feel like the Bears should probably win.
Yeah, and just like last week, almost to repeat ourselves here, it's which quarterback's going to play for the opponent because that makes a big difference. We know it's not going to be Joey Burrow; he's out. We'll see if they get them back if they get him back at any point this season, maybe December. But in the interim, if it's Joe Flacco, you think, well, that should be a W. But then you see what he's done in the 3 games he's played since they acquired him in trade from the Browns, and he's pretty good. He's looked pretty good even at his age. And then, but then he's been hurt, and I don't know what the latest status on him is. But that's the question going forward. If they got to play, Jake Browning, well, like being Tyler Huntley. Oh, wait, they lost to Tyler Huntley last week, so who knows?
Yeah, it should be really interesting. A lot of variables into this matchup. If you're joining us on YouTube, thanks so much for joining us live. We appreciate it. Get those comments in. Key matchups to watch, most valuable bear, all that kind of stuff. We love hearing from you guys. And if you're listening to us on the podcast, make sure you check us out when we're live. If you want to be part of the conversation, just check out our social medias and give us a like as well while you're here. We always appreciate it. Good way to grow the brand and good way to grow the podcast and the live stream. Before we get into matchups, Joe, it's been a busy week here at Halas Hall. Obviously, the Bears, as we know, have a lot of injury stuff, and they made a big signing. And let's talk about that big signing first of all. They signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson. He was available on the market. He started the season against the Houston with the Houston Texans. Then the Texans released him. Baltimore actually had him on its practice squad for a week. Then they released him, and then the Bears picked him up on Wednesday, made that official, bringing in some secondary depth. Clearly, with Kyler Gordon going on IR on Saturday, that he'll be gone for the next at least 3 weeks since he missed Sunday's game. It's 4 weeks, but since it was a Saturday thing, he'll miss the next 3 games at least. What were your reactions when you saw the signing, Joe? Because clearly the Bears needed the secondary help. They need someone to play that nickel spot. I think Nick McLeod has done a fine job, but I think maybe the Bears are like, I think they wanted someone else in that spot other than Nick McLeod and Josh Blackwell. So what were your thoughts about bringing in C.J. Gardner-Johnson?
Well, a little surprised because it's typically a move the Bears as an organization don't make when you bring in a guy who, let's face it, has been controversial, a malcontent. He's rubbed people the wrong way. I mean, it's not because of talent or lack of that he's been bouncing around the league here in the last year after winning a Super Bowl with the Eagles. But it's clear why he's here. He played with Dennis Allen. He was on the Lions too, and Ben Johnson was there even though Ben wasn't coaching him. So they know him. But the big key here is Dennis Allen, right? Can they get this guy to behave, to exist with his teammates? I don't know what the stuff he's actually done to tick people off, but apparently he has. But if you take that aside, there probably wasn't a better available football player, let alone a corner on the market that you could just get for nothing, basically. The kid's super talented. He gets under people's skins. Sometimes his teammates, I guess. Certainly other players. We saw that with the Bears a few years ago with Javon Wims and then Anthony Miller. So, no, he's a guy. He's one of those, a lot of times you hockey player. He's a guy you hate him if he's on the other team. If he's on your team, you love him. So, but just the desperation there they were in the secondary with losing not only the 3 guys we've alluded to with Gordon, Stevenson, and who's the third one? Yeah, Jalen Johnson, of course. But we talk about going back to the preseason with Terrell Smith and the Zay Frazier kid who they drafted, but is not going to play this year. So they're so depleted in the secondary. So you get an opportunity to pick up this guy. We'll see what the leash is on him. We'll see how much he plays Sunday. We're not sure. Maybe you know more about that. Maybe circumstances will dictate that. But certainly I don't think he's been to a Pro Bowl, but he's a Pro Bowl caliber player. I think he had 6 interceptions last year for the Eagles. So he's a dude. He's a dude. Just can he behave and can he be a good teammate? Because if he can't, I don't know if what's the phrase? If a tiger changes stripes, leopard changes his stripes. I don't know if that's possible with this kid, but if it is, they got a good football player, and it's for nothing. I don't know what they're paying him, but it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, this for me felt like a move where the Bears, Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles must feel really confident about what they have in their locker room, where they were confident enough where they knew that the Kevin Byards and the Jaquan Briskers and the Tremaine Edmonds and of the world were not going to let this one guy kind of take over and change the culture, right? So it felt like a risk worth taking for the Bears because of that. And, it's interesting because, throughout the years, it seems like Ryan Poles has been risk adverse, right? Like he didn't take Jalen Carter because of the situation. He has probably steered away against some guys because of things that he's heard or experiences he's had with. But for this, it felt like to me where Poles was confident in Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen and the locker room where he's not going to be a menace. He's only going to be whatever. And then maybe there is a short leash, so no one asked him, Ben Johnson or Dennis Allen, whether he's going to have a short leash or anything like that. But it based on everything that we talked to with Ben Johnson, we talked to Dennis Allen about it. We talked to, Kevin Byard about it, Jaquan Brisker. Everyone was very confident in the due diligence and that he was going to be able to fit in. So if I'm the Bears, I'm kind of like, all right, like this guy had 6 interceptions last year. He won the Super Bowl. He saw, he even said himself when we met with him where he saw what it takes to win a Super Bowl championship. Like he saw what it takes to, put in the work. And I'm curious and I'm very interested to see, like most of us in our lives, like we obviously mature with age. So maybe he's matured. Maybe he's learned from winning a Super Bowl that this is what you need to do. He was asked, does stuff get under, do you say stuff to get under people's skin? And he was like, listen, if they get offended, they get offended. Like, I don't think you're going to see him not saying that kind of stuff, but I don't think that you're going to see him make a negative impact on this team. Maybe he can't play to the level that he did last year with the Eagles or 2 years ago with the Eagles, where he also had 6 interceptions. Maybe his play on the field is not going to be their replacement level that you need. And maybe it will, but I don't think that the Bears make this move if there's any hint of worries that he's going to be a disruptor in that locker room.
Yeah, this seems like a move like the Chiefs make, right? Like, oh, sure, because they don't care because their room is so secure and they got the leadership, and they would bring in a guy like this, and then you'd say, oh, sure, the rich get richer, sure, they get C.J. Gardner Johnson, okay, but the Bears, but it's clear. I mean, if this was last year, Matt Eberflus for coaching the team, not picking on Matt, but or any other coach, it was John Fox. I mean, you're not bringing this guy in, so it's the familiarity in particular with Dennis Allen. So. Now, I didn't hear the interview he had with the media, Gardner Johnson. I heard I think I said he says he wants to be called CD. I don't know.
Yeah, he wants to go by CD now. I don't know. I'm just sticking with whatever his name is. I don't know. I can't keep media.
But I didn't hear much of the interview with him. I heard a short sound bite. I didn't hear much contrition from the guy. Like, look, when you've bounced around this much, this is silly because you're a good football player. It's not because you stink at football. You're good at football. So I didn't hear any contrition from the guy. Like, you know what? I've done some bad things, some things I've rubbed, whatever. Like, no accountability there. That's what I wanted to hear more. Unless you heard that, unless he said that, I just missed it. Then I apologize. But that's what I want to hear. Like, after a while, man, it's like, dude, it's not everybody else. It's you. Look in the mirror. And why? You're still a young guy. I think he's 27 years old. I mean, if he stays healthy, this guy can play another, 5-10 years in the league. Who knows? Because he's good. And what team doesn't need secondary help? I mean, even if you're loaded, as we see with the Bears, as we've seen with the Bears this year, you always need secondary help. And this guy's a good football player.
Yeah, I would say I've seen some guys in the comments, say you need a guy like him, and I don't disagree. Like Kevin Byard even said, like you need a Dennis Rodman, right? Like you need a Joakim Noah, you need an Andrew Shaw. You just need like a guy who like you hate on any other
Yeah,
team, but like when he's on your team, you like him because he kind of instigates and that kind of stuff. Now, if that instigation leads to 15-yard penalties and drive kills, like I don't think they're going to put up with it. But if that leads to, maybe maybe Jamar Chase isn't as focused because this guy won't stop yapping at him, then I think the Bears are fine with that. But so it'll be interesting to watch. He's going to play in the slot. Ben Johnson said and Dennis Allen both said that he's only going to focus on the slot position. He's moved around a lot in the secondary, but he's been playing a lot of safety. He's been playing a lot that slot corner. So this is very clearly a move just to kind of until Kyler Gordon gets back. He was asked, are you going to play this week? He said, I'll see you on Sunday. So I think that answers that. So we'll see what that impact is going to be like. But an interesting move made by the Bears, and we'll see how much of an impact it has in that secondary, which was injury depleted. But the Bears did get some good injury news when it came to that secondary. Tyreek Stevenson was a limited participant on Wednesday. He's a full participant on Thursday. So I would imagine that Tyreek Stevenson is going to get back in there. And Joe, that's a huge. You're going against, I'm sure we'll preview this. You're going against Jamar Chase. You're going against T. Higgins. You need Tyreek Stevenson back in that secondary if you're going to want to try to stop him.
yeah, absolutely. That was really encouraging news because, with Chase, again, we'll get to it, but it's going to be like one of those, like when Michael was in his prime. It's like you're not trying to stop the guy. You're just trying to, contain him, to limit him because Jamar Chase is going to get the football. And it's just a matter of you. And to me, again, maybe we'll break it down some more, but the best way to prevent him from getting the football, keep their offense off the field, right? Which means the Bears offense and Caleb need to have a big game. That would go a long way in helping the defense.
Yeah, definitely would. And obviously, I don't know, everyone's talked about it. You put 2 or 3 guys on him. It doesn't really matter who you put on him. Yeah. He's going to make a play. He's made it with Joe Flacco. He's done it with Jake Browning sometimes. So it'll be really good to have Tyreek Stevenson back. Early at the beginning of the week, we had a little bit of a square where the Bears' top 3 wide receivers didn't practice. Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, and Olamide Zaccheaus were all out, didn't practice. They all returned to practice yesterday in limited fashion. DJ Moore is just through that. Rome Odunze had a heel, and Olamide is still dealing with that knee. We didn't get a chance to talk to Olamide, but DJ and Rome both say they'll be fine, so I'm not really concerned about that. Cole Kmet returned to practice this week, too, with that back injury. He's limited in both back-to-back days. He said on Wednesday we'll see how he's feeling, but he's hoping that he can get back. That'll be a big addition back in there, especially if you're trying to run the ball. Joe Thuney had a rest day on Thursday. Not concerned about that. It seems like they're just going to give him a rest day every Thursday. Luther Burden remains out with a concussion. He hasn't left concussion protocol, so I don't know how he would do there. The biggest one is DeAndre Swift, right? And we've talked about DeAndre Swift here for the past couple weeks, and we've given him his kudos where it's very clear that he's playing injured. Like he's not 100%. They're trying to limit him with that groin injury. He didn't practice on Wednesday, and he didn't practice on Thursday, which is different from the previous 2 weeks where he didn't practice on Wednesday, but he was limited on Thursday. Obviously, we'll see what the injury report looks on Friday. But Joe, are you concerned that, even if he does practice today, does this kind of feel like a game where this might have to become the Kyle Monunga game, especially, Roshan Johnson has been out with a back injury. Even if you get DeAndre Swift in there, I feel like this feels like, hey, rookie, like we need you to carry the workload here because our number one guy, like he's just dealing with a nagging injury at this point.
Yeah, and to clarify, is what's the injury with? Is it a groin? What's with DeAndre Swift? The injury
for Swift, it's a groin.
It is a groin, right?
Yeah,
got to be careful. I mean, it's funny because so many people before the season, we're looking like we need a number 1 running back, not a complimentary back. We need a number 1 running back. Now all of a sudden, you can't afford to lose him. If they have to play 1 game without him, that's tough. I mean, no offense to Kyle Monunga. I think you got already a lot out of him for a 7th-round pick. But if he's going to be your featured back, probably means you're going to be seeing a lot more, I'm saying 10 or 12 snaps for DJ Moore out of the backfield, but probably you want him running a little bit there, because I don't know about Roschon Johnson. I mean, then you're pretty much kind of too late to get someone. I guess you could always activate someone off the practice squad, but whoever they are. Travis Homer, I guess, is ready, but he's always been just a special teams guy. He's just a guy. So that's tough, because Swift, he's not only, again, last week, even though the numbers weren't great, he was playing hurt, didn't get a lot of touches out of the backfield. I thought he still had a really good game. So that's 3 in a row here. And, especially with the run game, the offensive line doing a better job there in space, and particularly creating space, that's big. So I don't know. I mean, the Bears had so many injuries, but it's funny. Again, 2 months ago, if you would have said, a big loss would be DeAndre Swift, you'd say, come on. But yeah, that's looming, where that could be a big loss come Sunday. But you got to be careful with him. So with an injury like that,
I think you have to be encouraged that if there was a game that you were playing where you maybe are playing without DeAndre Swift, or you're limiting him, it's against the Bengals, right? Like, the Bengals are allowing an average of 151.9 rushing yards per game. That's the most in the NFL. This really feels like a game, and we'll hear from Ben. We'll talk to Ben here in a couple hours, and I'm interested to see whether, this is very clearly a nagging injury for Swift. So I wonder, do you just rest them and you rely on the rookie, you rely on Travis Homer? Maybe you get DJ Moore a little bit in there, but given how bad the Bengals rush defense is, maybe this is a game where you just rest Swift. You can give him a few extra days to kind of get back in there, and then you can get ready for the Giants here in a couple weeks. I'm interested to see what the thought process is. Ben's not going to tell us anything. He's very clearly someone who believes he's keeping, national secrets when it comes to the injury report. But I do wonder whether this is just a spot where you just don't put Swift out there in harm's way. You let him heal up, and you let the rookie and Travis Homer just kind of run out there against a very bad, rush defense.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, since he played last week against Baltimore, I would think, unless they're just being careful and almost like, let's not risk anything. Go light. Don't practice. Whatever. I would hope he plays, but you have a better pulse on that than I do. But they're also at this. See, this is just weird part of the season now, because where you're at record wise. Like, do you think you can make a playoff run, or you're like, hey, we're just trying to see improvement, week to week or month to month here, and figure out the offense and get the quarterback right going into year 3. I mean, like, what kind of year is this? Because then it's like, with the trade deadline coming up here too, do you make a move to get better as a football team, or you're like, nah, we're not going to risk draft capital. We're not beating the Lions. We're not going to win this division. We're not beating the Packers. So I don't know where they're at. It's a tough one. When you stink, it's easy. When you're good, it's easy. But when you're in between, and so many teams are in this, 500, give or take a game, it's a tough spot to be in. So I'm not sure how they're feeling. Like, I guess my point, which I'm not doing a good job of making, is how badly do you think you need to win this football game come Sunday against the Bengals? Like, do you look at it as a must win if we're going to be have a shot at the playoffs? Or you're like, we can't tell anybody on the record, but we're okay if we lose, because where we're at, we're just looking for improvements from other players and in other areas. I don't know.
Rick says that's crazy talk, Joe. You play to win every game. And, I'm sure I get that mindset, obviously, but I do wonder, it's one of those things for me where it's like, do you benefit yourself for the rest of the year if you have Swift miss this one game? Like, these injuries are just like the soft tissue injuries don't go away. They are going to nag there, and they're going to keep on being an impact for you throughout the season. So I think the Bears would rather have a healthy DeAndre Swift against the Vikings, against the Eagles, against the all those different difficult teams that they're going to play against. So yeah, I agree. It's an interesting thing. And it'll be really interesting to see what they end up doing. Robert chiming in from across the pond. Good to hear from you, Robert. Isn't Homer ready to go at running back? I would assume he would go. He's been getting the second team reps during whatever we're allowed to see during practice. And I would assume that he would get the second team reps. I don't know. I think DJ will get a couple rushes here or there, but especially with him dealing with that injury, like I just think you kind of need to limit him and have him be a guy who's making an impact as a wide receiver threat as opposed to, running back threat. But again, I might be wrong, and Ben Johnson might think otherwise. All right, Joe, let's get into our previews here. We've got to talk our big matchups here. Bears taking on the Bengals. What's your big matchup that you're watching for Sunday afternoon?
Well, I'll go with the obvious one. It's Ja'Marr Chase against who's going to defend him. I would guess it's Tyreek if he's good to go, but then it's who else. And I really want to see what C.J. Gardner-Johnson brings to the football team, how much he'll play, and how much a thorn in the side will he be to anybody? Will he try to immediately go and be instigator, whether it's Chase or don't forget about T. Higgins. He's also good at football. And then again, it's like last week. Well, who's the quarterback? Because we don't know yet, right? For certain if Joe Flacco is going to play. So that said, it's just going to be fun to watch Ja'Marr Chase. Really props to this guy. He's got 70 receptions. He could break Michael Thomas's record, which wasn't set that long ago for receptions in a season. I think it was 149 Thomas had with the Saints a few years ago. And then remember Cooper Kupp a few years ago, a couple of years after that, had 148, 149. But anyway, Chase, Triple Crown winner last year. He's just a special football player. If you look at his career number, and this is year 5 for him in the league already now. It's really spectacular. He's on a Hall of Fame path, so he's just going to be fun to watch him. And again, he's been targeted 99 times. I don't know if, I don't know what the Bears targets. I'm assuming Rome leads with targets, but not close to 99. So it's not a secret what they're going to do. So even if you don't want to watch that matchup, you're going to watch that matchup because they're going to be going to him a lot. But it'll be fun to see what he does. Can they keep him out of the end zone or try to limit his touchdowns? But he's a special player, and it'll be fun just to watch that match, whether it's Tyreek, they put Johnson Gardner on, whoever they have back there, Nashawn Wright at times, whatever they can to just try to not stop him, but just try to contain him a little bit.
I think you're going to have to put both, Tyreek Stevenson and, whether it's Kevin Byard, Jaquan Brisker, or it might be C.J. Gardner-Johnson. You're going to have to get a lot of guys on him. He's been at an incredible pace here the last 2 games. 23 targets against the Pittsburgh Steelers a couple weeks ago, 16 receptions for 161 yards. Last week it went down, Joe, to 19 targets for 12 receptions and 91 yards. I'm interested to see, I don't know. I don't think it'll change that much if Jake Browning is the quarterback, but it's just incredible the pace he's going on right now. And I don't know if you're Joe Flacco, why would you not throw to Ja'Marr Chase, right? He's just an incredible athlete who can do you can throw a 50-50 ball. And for Ja'Marr Chase, I feel like he probably gets 80% of the time, 75% of the time, maybe even higher than that. He's just an incredible athlete. He's got this great speed. He runs his route so quickly. His catch radius is insane. He's, I feel like this fluctuates a lot. Ja'Marr Chase, Justin Jefferson. I'm sure I'm forgetting someone right now, but he's one of the best, if not the best, wide receivers out there. So, yeah, I agree. This is going to be a really tough spot for him. And I think let's not forget T. Higgins is on the other side of things, right? T. Higgins is not a wide receiver to, look down upon at all. So this Bears secondary is going to be really tested. And listen, this is a really good opportunity for that pass rush to create some pressure, whether it's going to be, Joe Flacco, who's actually run it a little bit more than he used to, or whether it's Jake Browning, because if you can't get much of a pass rush here, you can't let Ja'Marr Chase have 4 seconds to make a play on a guy, because he's going to create a gap. He's going to create some sort of space, and he's going to create a lot of opportunities. So the Bears are really going to need their pass rush to get going if they want to stop, Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins from having a big game. All right, my big matchup here is kind of what I talked about last week, and that's, Caleb Williams kind of living up to the moment, right? You look at this defense for the Bengals is just bad, which is kind of been crazy for how good they kind of were expected heading into the season. But Trey Hendrickson hasn't practiced this week. Obviously, he's not healthy. You've got, I forgot who the defensive end was, or the defensive tackle actually requested a trade yesterday. So that defense is not looking too hot right now. And you see it in the stats. I mean, they're averaging 256 passing yards allowed in a game. The Bengals have allowed the second most amount of passing yards this season. That's 2,048. Last week we said Caleb needs to kind of have his game and kind of take over. And that's kind of how I feel in this game because, listen, I don't think they are going to stop Jamar Chase. I don't think you're going to stop T. Higgins. Those are just elite athletes going against an injured secondary for the Bears. And I think C.J. Gardner-Johnson can make an impact. It's great to have Tyreek Stevenson back in there. But you're still missing, Jalen Johnson. You're still missing Kyler Gordon. And to be quite honest, if it wasn't for the turnovers, this defense has allowed a lot of passing yards. So you need Caleb Williams to step up here in a big moment. We've been looking for it. Yes, he's had the game-winning drives against the Raiders and the Commanders. Yes, he had a great performance against the Cowboys, but going against a team like the Ravens, going against a team like the Bengals, you need your number one pick to step up in big moments. So we haven't seen that from Caleb to a full extent. We've seen flashes, right? We've seen him do the great play. We've seen him leave a drive and, score a touchdown. But for me, this just feels like a game where Caleb needs to be on his best performance, move the ball down the field, convert in the red zone. Don't scramble just to scramble. Make the right plays. Go out of bounds when you need to. Throw it away. Check the ball down. Don't throw the interception. You're going against a defense that is really struggling right now, and I'm expecting Caleb to show it this week. And I think he really, he doesn't need to be incredible. He doesn't need to have a 140 passer, QBR and 80% completion rate. But for me, he needs to be the reason why you win this game.
I agree. I mean, I don't want to jump ahead here. Maybe I will about, our most valuable Bear, who we think is going to be the guy who shines. He has to be that guy this week because I don't know. I'm not confident really any player on defense is going to have a big game. Now it's possible, right? Especially the way they've been producing turnovers up until last week. But it's got to be someone on the offense. It's a prime opportunity for someone to shine. Maybe it's one guy if DeAndre Swift doesn't play. But Caleb, we talk about all the time. Everyone talks about how progress isn't linear. Well, we need to see a little more linear-ish movement here with the quarterback, right?
Sure.
And a big part of that too is, like you said, Michael, run a little bit, man. I mean, even if it's a 4-yard gain, it beats a throw out of bounds or an off-target throw that could have been intercepted. So you pick up a few yards. He's a good runner. He's not Justin Fields in the open field. No pun intended there, or double word. But he can run. He can move. And again, we see all the stud QBs do it. Mahomes, Allen, Lamar's a different story. But, Mahomes and Josh Allen don't prefer to run. But when they have to, you got to make a play. I mean, those are like momentum changing plays to keep a drive going, to give yourself a shot. And as we're seeing too many times, and this is probably the case with a lot of NFL games, but there's so many times where it comes down to like 2 or 3 moments in a game where, and a lot of times it's early in a game, and then come late in the game, like you're pressing and you're throwing, like we talked about the other day, you're throwing an interception deep in your territory and everyone's focusing on that interception while you lost the game. But it was the other things earlier in the game. Could have kept the drive going by doing one little thing. And all of a sudden, maybe you do get into the end zone. So just want to see a better all-around performance from Caleb, like you said, because it's a perfect opportunity here.
And obviously, we focus on Caleb, but you got to get rid of the false starts. The penalties need to stop. Obviously, you need your guys to, hit the routes the right way. Like, it's not fully a Caleb problem why this offense isn't working right. Like, it's not. Sure. If you blame the quarterback, obviously, for a lot of the things because he's the quarterback, right? But I am interested. I'm currently reading Seth Wickersham's book, the quarterback book, and it's been really interesting. And an interesting point that he makes during the book is that, these Tom Brady's, Patrick Mahomes, they're not elite quarterbacks because they make the 70-yard pass, right? Or anything like that. They're elite quarterbacks because They know when to check down. They know when to run for 3 or 4 yards to pick up a first down. They know when to throw it away instead of taking the sack. Like, that's what makes an elite quarterback. And I think that's where Caleb is kind of developing right now, where he still needs to learn. And I don't expect him by year 2 to be a Tom Brady or a Patrick Mahomes, right? Like, I'm not expecting him to be at that level, but I do think you want to see him progress in his development, where I don't have anything. I'm going to fight my instinct to run around for 7 more seconds and then throw it away or throw into double coverage and maybe it's a pick. I think, it'll be really interesting to see whether that development continues. Does he check down, like Ben Johnson talked about on an interception? Like, it's those little things that really make a difference that I'll be watching for too, because it'll be great if they do a trick play. It's a 70-yard pass to Luther or whoever, to DJ Moore or whatever. Like, that's great stuff. But the real development to me is, does he take the easy stuff? Does he continue to kind of, just move the ball down the field? Doesn't create himself in those 3rd and long situations, 2nd and long situations? And does he make things easier for the offense? So, yeah, I agree. This just feels like a game for me where you're going against a bad defense. This is really a good opportunity to develop as a quarterback, to work on some of those things. So when you play the Eagles later on, when you play the Vikings, when you play the Packers and the Lions, you know what to do in those situations because you've done it in game action before.
Yeah, again, we need to see a good game out of him because it's been too long. And I'll get back to that opening drive last week against Baltimore, and we know the plays are scripted and everything, but that was a great drive. And then they broke down inside the 10-yard line. All that drive was missing was the finishing play to get into the end zone. And every time I'm watching NFL highlights, I'm seeing like guys like wide open in the end zone, like from on 1st and goal from the 7, or 2nd and goal from the 8, and then you're seeing guys like wide open. So there's got to be a play like that, a well-designed play to finish a drive like that. And then I think the confidence goes up not only for Caleb, but the entire offense.
All right, Joe, what is your surprise prediction for Sunday?
Well, I told you last week, I love CJ. I think it was CJ's about a clean game, basically. I don't know if that's going to happen. Now you signed a guy who, like, watch CJ Gardner get a 15-yard on Sportsmanlike comes out. Oh boy! So I'm not going to go that route. That would be lovely to see that. Not the penalty, the lack of penalties by the Bears, but I picked the Bears to win. I think are the Bengals still favored? Again, the quarterback thing is so makes this a tough one, but I think you and I both, in the paper anyway, we both picked the Bears because I went back and forth on that. But I don't know if it'll be really considered a surprise, but I'm going to pick the Bears here. I'm going to pick, I guess he's kind of one and the same with my MVP Bear, unless you were going to take him, is Caleb. I think he's going to bounce back. I don't know. There's nothing. I make that opinion based on what's happened the last 2 weeks, certainly. But I think he's due. I think this team, Cincinnati, is right for him. And I would certainly think after what's gone on the last 2 weeks, like, what are you doing in practice otherwise if you're not getting better here? It doesn't have to be day to day, but I think he's just due for a game. So I'm going to say the Bears win this one.
All right. My surprise prediction is that Montez Sweat is going to have a big impact. I think that he's been he's been getting there. I think he's been doing a good job the last 3 weeks. Last year he had a good start, kind of flamed out a little bit there, but I think he'll have 2 sacks. That's my prediction. My surprise prediction is going to be that he has 2 sacks. I think this is a Bengals offensive line where you can maybe create some pressure and create some good opportunities. So I think Montez Sweat is going to have a 2-sack game here and kind of step it up here. Robert chiming in, Ozzy's going to have a touchdown pass reported as eligible receiver like 10 times last week. What? Yeah, they've been doing that a lot the last 2 weeks. I think that, obviously they're getting the extra blocker there, but every time I'm like, this is going to Ozzy, and, it hasn't yet. But I'm curious to see what that kind of looks like. But Declan Doyle was asked about that earlier this week, and he said they've liked what they've seen so far. It hasn't been too many times, like Robert said, but they've enjoyed doing it. CJ chiming in, the biggest surprise, Bears keep passing game in check by controlling the clock. I think I would agree with that. I think that this is the game where you just want to control. Like that last week's game went so quickly. Just all of a sudden, it was like the end of the first quarter. It was like halftime, and everyone was just like, "Wait, we're not ready for halftime yet. Like this is taking too quickly." So I can see that. I can see that taking place. All right, Joe. Let's go to our most valuable bear. You kind of scooped us here a little bit earlier. I've got last week you won based on choosing DeAndre Swift. He finished with 11 points. Colston Loveland finished with 7 fantasy points, so we gave it to you. So now losing here a little bit, left a 2-game winning streak for Joe. I am like the Bears. I've got a 4-3 record here, and Joe, you have the first pick, and you're going to use your second Caleb pick of the season. You're going with Caleb Williams.
I am. I'm going to burn my second Caleb, which I have one left and half the season to go after this week. So, yeah, I pretty much said everything I need to say, but the quarterback is better than what he's shown the last 2 weeks. Can we all agree on that? And you and I talked about it a lot on Monday. We're not ready to call him a bust by any means. And certainly it's not all on him, but I want to just see more, can we have a game with 0 false starts? That would do wonders for this offense. It really would. And finishing it, not only in the red zone, but I mentioned this the other day, when you get the ball on the opponent's yard line, whether it's the 49 or because they've struggled with that too. And there were a couple of key moments, one in particular in the second half or late first half, where it was after the long kickoff return by Duvernay. Maybe that was second half, where they had it at 40-something yard line of the Ravens and didn't even get a first down. Like that stuff is a killer. So better execution there. The completion rate, we know it's got to be much better. Take the easy throws. I think he's just got to be better here after what we've seen the last 2 weeks. And I'm not saying we need to see what he did against Dallas, but we need to see a happy quarterback too. And just guys because this is tough. It's tough for the whole offensive unit. And I just want to see more of Rome. I think Rome Odunze, I don't know. I don't play fantasy ball. I don't know what kind of where he stands with fantasy league, but I really like the player Rome is developing into. I keep seeing sometimes on social media about people like, oh, he's not making the number one wide receiver catch, like the spectacular catch, like that one-handed grab by DJ late in the game against the Ravens, or, those spectacular catches in traffic. That aside, I think he's been really good, and we hoped the Bears needed him to take a step in year 2. Rome has done that. And now Caleb, you're the guy to get him the ball. I mean, maybe you're targeting him too many times. I know that's been a topic of conversation all week, but I think Caleb is due.
Yeah, I think the Rome. We can get into the Rome because I'm going to go with him as my most valuable bear. I think Rome is going to have a big game. With the Rome conversation about him, I agree with it sometimes where it's kind of like there's at least 1 or 2 ball to him in a game where he's kind of like, man, that's like a number 1 catches that, right? Like a top 10 wide receiver catches that. And that's not to say that like he's not taking care, like he's doing what he needs to be doing. Like his routes are great. I like his blocking a lot on the outside. But there's still some plays sometimes where it's like, it's a hard catch, mind you. I'm not saying that it's an easy catch, but those are catches that number 1 receivers make, right? Those are catches that Jamar Chase makes. Those are catches that Justin Jefferson makes. That like those are elite wide receiver catches. And if Rome wants to be a top 10, a top 5 wide receiver, like I'm sure he does, those are the catches that he needs to make sometimes. The catches that other wide receivers don't make. So I don't think there's too much criticism out there about him being like bad or any means, but I do understand sometimes where they're kind of like, that's a catch that he should probably make if he wants to be considered an elite wide receiver. But I am going with Rome. I think Rome, it was one of my points in my story on Thursday about, is Caleb targeting, Rome Odunze too much? Declan Doyle didn't consider it that way. You want to get your number 1 receiver as many progressions, as many reads as possible, right? Like the problem is if Caleb is focusing too much on Rome and not going through his progressions to 2, 3, 4, right? I think that's when the problem is. And the Bears don't consider that a problem right now. And So we'll see. Maybe it was just highlighted this past week because he obviously threw into double coverage to Rome for that interception when he had Kyle Monangai open on that check down. But for right now, the Bears don't consider it a problem. So it'll be interesting to see what that target share kind of looks like here this weekend, especially when you're going against a not great defense. Like, is this an opportunity for I've seen other guys mention Colston Loveland. Is this an opportunity for, like CJ and Robert are saying, DJ Moore to kind of step up here? So it'll be really interesting to see what kind of an impact he's going to make and what kind of an impact the wide receivers are going to make. All right, Joe, Bears are playing at noon Central Time, 1 o'clock Eastern. CBS game again as they travel to an AFC East opponent. What happens Sunday afternoon?
I think the Bears win. I don't have a lot of good reasons why I think they should win, other than I think they're due for a good game. And even going back again, even the win against the Saints here wasn't pretty. The Raiders game wasn't pretty. But I think they're due here. We're almost at the halfway point, and this is what this will be game 8, right? The 4-3. Yeah. So I just think they're good. I mean, I guess you look back at the 7 games they've played, the Cowboys is like, that's the game with the star, right? That no pun intended there, I guess, with Dallas. But that's your best game. I think they're ready for another one, and I think they're going to win this football game. I think they're going to score. I think you're going to see. I mean, wouldn't it be lovely to see the Bears like drop 40 on somebody? I don't think they're going to get that high, but I'm going to say they're going to get 28 points. I think they're going to win 28-21. How about that?
That sounds right. Obviously, our score. I think I would choose the Bears regardless if Flacco or Browning are playing. Yeah. I think our score predictions are going to change. If it's Browning, I think the Bears kind of blow this one up a little bit. I think I think that they obviously will do a bit, but there's a reason why, the Bears, or the Bengals traded for Joe Flacco. He's made an impact for them, but I think the Bears win this game regardless. I think they didn't like what happened last week in Baltimore. I think they knew that was a game they should have won. You could tell that in the locker room after they got in their own way, and with all the penalties, with all the inconsistencies, and I think they go back on the road and they kind of show what they can do against a winnable team. Because listen, you've got the Bengals, you've got the Giants, and then you've got, I guess, the Vikings and the Browns, who are teams with losing records. The rest of your team, the rest of your games are going to be against winning teams and teams with that really good records, like 2 loss games, 3 loss teams. So this is a big opportunity that the Bears, I think, need to take advantage of. So I think they will. I'll go with a 28-17 win. I think they limit the Bengals a lot. I did like the thought of they control the clock a lot here. I think they're going to run the ball a lot. I think they're going to set up the pass by the run, and then Caleb is able to execute some key plays. So I don't think that I would love to see them get to 30 or to 40. I just don't think there's going to be enough time there.
Yeah, that's the onus is on the offense here, because the Bengals will move the football with that. Those receivers they have. And Noah Fant's actually had a pretty good year for them so far. Kind of well-traveled now, still a young guy. But anyway, so, yeah, keep the other offense off the field. That's always a good way to play good defense, quote unquote, is by not giving the other team opportunities. But because when they get the ball, they're going to move. They're probably not going to have too many 3-and-outs. So when you get the ball, hang on to it. If it's got to be Kyle Monangai Day, it's got to be Kyle Monangai Day. They're capable. And he showed, was it 2 weeks ago, what he's capable of. Get a little confidence and you get momentum going on offense, running the football like they did against the Saints. Monangai had a big game. So let's hope DeAndre Swift plays, because I just want to see that role continue for him, because he's a weapon. We knew that. It just didn't look good early, and a lot of times last year because of the offensive line, but the offensive line has figured it out. Got to figure out Theo Bennett a little more. He's having some troubles there at left tackle. But other than that, props to the O-line and Darnell Wright, who I don't know about I'll say me, and maybe a lot of other people were picking on a few weeks ago, because he's kind of been back healthy and good. And but again, let's clean it up. Clean it up. And even Ben Johnson, he's been saying this for the last 3 weeks. Imagine what we're going to look like when we take on all the penalties. So do that. Run the football. Caleb's due, and they should win a football game Sunday.
Rick chiming in with the 34-23 score for the Bears winning that game. Robert chiming in saying the Bengals will put 30-plus points up on the board if it's Flacco in there. I wouldn't be surprised. I think this defense creates a lot of turnovers, but when it doesn't create a lot of turnovers, it does give up a lot of yards. So the lack of a pass rush has been noticeable. Want to hit on 2 things before we say goodbye here quickly. Joe, I'm surprised you didn't consider Austin Booker to be your most valuable Bear, considering he's likely going to play this weekend.
Yes.
I thought that would have been your number 1 choice quickly, but I guess you want to see what he does this weekend before fully embracing him as your most valuable Bear.
Yeah, I'll be totally over the top if he has 2 sacks Monday when we discuss.
1 sack even. I feel like you'll start off the podcast just singing his praises. So yeah, we'll see if Austin Booker is able to make. He's going to have to make an impact this week. The Bears activated him on Tuesday, so he'll be back in there. And don't want to spend too much time on this because we got to say goodbye. But Joe, does your thoughts on what the Bears do in the trade deadline change, whether they win this game or lose their game, or are you kind of neutral at this point?
That's a great question. It really is, because they're in this tough spot. And getting back to Rick's point about it, Joe, you played it. Well, you won every game. I get that, Rick. But look, you think you think if the Ravens needed to win that game Sunday to get the playoffs, you think Lamar Jackson's playing? He's playing. But they're playing the Bears, and they had to be careful. So that's only my point there. But the Bears are in this tough spot here. But if they win, look, I still say anytime you get a chance to get a great player, I don't know how many great players are out there. I know Trey Hendrickson is 30. He's going to be 31 in December. But, man, the guy's just been a freaking monster. And if you could get him, I know you got a lot of money tied up in the defensive line. I'd get him. Doesn't sound like he's going there. There are other teams rumored. Looks like he might be moving, but just not to the Bears. If that's the case, if you're not going to get a guy like that, I don't know what other big impact guy is available. So many teams need a pass rusher. Who doesn't, right? But if you can't get a guy like that, then hold pat and accumulate those, hang on to those second-round picks, because as we've seen this year, we see how valuable those second-round picks are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the mindset where I think we'll see. I don't think we're going to see much. I don't think we're going to see much next week. I think this is actually going to be a trade deadline where Ryan Poles doesn't do what he usually does, and I think he's just going to sit. I think maybe they give up like a 6 or something like that for like a secondary guy, or someone just kind of boosts the secondary. But for me, this team is in transition, and everything that I've heard from them this year doesn't really give me the impression that they're going to go for it this year. I think that they're kind of like, let's hold on to our assets. We can get more guys on team control that Ben Johnson wants in his room in the draft here the next week. I think the only way, and I don't know how likely this is, if you can get a Myles Garrett, if you can get a Max Crosby, do it. Without hesitation, do it, right? Give away whatever they want. 3 first-round picks is a lot for me, but if you can get Myles Garrett or Max Crosby, I think you make that trade. Those guys are still on the younger side. They're both they're guaranteed great players, right? And they're younger. But the Browns have laughed and said we're not trading Myles Garrett. I think they should, because if he doesn't seem happy, and I don't know what the direction of that team is. Max Crosby is kind of hard to tell. The Raiders have also kind of laughed and said no. But where are you going with that? Pete Carroll, they seem more of I feel like they thought that they can just do an instant shock this year and be a winning team, but that really hasn't happened. So I don't know if I'm the Browns, and I don't know if and again, if I'm Myles Garrett, do I want to go to the Bears? If I'm, Max Crosby, do I want to go to the Bears? I feel like at that point in their career, they probably want to go to a Kansas City or a Buffalo or a Green Bay, right? Teams that are on the verge of winning a Super Bowl, as opposed to, a middling team like the Bears. But yeah, I mean, if you can get A-plus players like that, I think you make the trade. But other than that, I think it'll be, regardless of what happens on Sunday, I think it should be a pretty quiet weekend up to Tuesday.
And you really made a trade, if you want to put it in that category, this week with getting Gardner Johnson, which, I mean, after last season, if they would have offered you if the Bears would have offered a 5th pick, they probably would have given that up. I would have, for a guy coming off the year he had on the field, that is. So, they made a move, I think. They didn't pick up some guy they just signed and they're going to put him on the practice squad as a depth piece. This is a guy, if he behaves, he's an impact player. So that would probably be it for me, unless they're right. They'll be always got to be poking around. I'm sure Ryan Poles is. He is. But I think Hendrickson's going to be moved. Just from what I read and listen to the NFL guys who are connected to the agents and stuff, just not to the Bears.
All right, guys, that's everything that we got for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. If you joined us on YouTube, appreciate it. Love all the chatter in the chat on YouTube. We really appreciate it. If you're joining us, make sure you hit the like button. That's the best way to support us. Really appreciate you guys and hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you're listening on the podcast and want to be part of the conversation, we usually record on Friday morning and Monday morning as well after a game. Monday, we might have an early travel day. Maybe we'll do like a lunchtime podcast again on Monday. We'll see what our schedules kind of look like. But make sure you follow our social medias. We'll be talking to you on Monday. I'm at Dwojak 94. Joe's at Joe Aguilar 64. And obviously at Air Bears Insider, we'll post when we're going to be chatting with you live. Make sure you check out all my work. I'll be in Cincinnati this weekend. I'll have coverage from Halas Hall today as we hear more about the injury status of DeAndre Swift and a bunch of other guys. And make sure you're following Joe. He's got your week 1 football coverage this weekend. It's a fall crisp weekend, but Joe's going to be out there covering it all in McHenry County. So make sure you follow him at Joe Aguilar 64. So for Joe and I, thanks so much for joining us this week. Make sure you guys enjoy the fall weather, enjoy the football, and we will talk to you guys on Monday.